Up on the mountain, in the sudden divine light, Peter proposes a tent-building project. Luke writes very simply that Peter doesn't know what he's saying. In response to Peter's proposal, the voice from heaven declares, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And when the voice is finished speaking, they find Jesus alone. Together, they walk away down the mountain, I suspect in a somewhat awkward state. What is it about Peter that provokes such a strong rebuke from that heavenly voice? It's a common enough way to cope, right? We all talk sometimes to fill up the awkward silences with words, especially when everything going on around us is so disorienting and so strange. It may be that Peter is just dealing in his own way with the stress that this situation has understandably provoked in him. But the voice, nevertheless, the voice says, "Shh, be still. Pay attention." Peter, if you will just come to center and ground yourself, and then look, there you will behold the treasure you seek. The very reason that you left everything behind in the first place. It's right in front of you right now. But you have to slow down to see it. So, Peter, stop speaking. Just open up and let this in. Look and see Jesus for who he is. Now, not long before this moment, Jesus asks the disciples who they say the Son of Man is, and they reply, perfect evasive tactical maneuver. Some say John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. So he puts the question to them more directly. But who do you yourselves say that I am? Come on, guys. We've been together this whole time. Who do you say I am? It's Peter who offers the correct response. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Perhaps he thinks that that will settle the question and they can move on to something else. I imagine being under the gaze of Jesus and being subjected to his questions was quite intense. But he seizes on the moment anyway. He says, "Blessed are you, Simon, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter." He renames him in that moment. You are Peter now, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. Direct question, simple response, an acknowledgement of the truth, and a commissioning on his life that Peter is just not capable of understanding at this point. How could you? And so, only a few days later, surely going up on that mountain and seeing Jesus transfigured will burn away any remaining doubts about who and what he is. With Moses as the law of God on one side and Elijah, the prophet of God, on the other, Jesus is presented to his followers for who he actually is. Now that's half of it. The other half is what you do once you know. How you have to live your life now in response to knowing what you know. The fancy word for this moment is theophany, the self-revealing of God coming to knowledge in the minds of humans. But if Jesus is who he says he is in this theophany, that is, who he reveals himself to be, then there are consequences and there are guidelines for how to get along in this world, because that truth now has to be our guide. Certain ways of being. So the first half is the beholding and knowing him to be God, worthy of our love and worship. The other half is living with him as our teacher and our friend. Following Jesus has serious repercussions. After all, the cross is still ahead of them once they get down off the mountain. Peter and James and John need Jesus, and they need each other. And so do we. For almost all of us, that means a community that we can call our spiritual home. People that we can call friends and allies. And a place where our souls feel free to come out and play. But for an awful lot of people, so-called spiritual homes and friendships may not feel safe anymore. They have already seen Jesus for who he really is up on that mountain, but now that they've come down, it's hard to find true friends and allies. You know, the ones you can ask anything to? The ones you can talk about anything? Parker Palmer writes that the soul is shy. Think about that. The soul is shy. He says, in Western culture, we often seek truth through confrontation. But our headstrong ways of charging at truth scare the shy soul away. Scare the shy soul away. He says, if soul truth is to be spoken and heard, it must be approached on the slant. Soul truth is so powerful that we must allow ourselves to approach it and it to approach us indirectly. We must invite, not command, the soul to speak. We must allow, not force, ourselves to listen. For the past few months, I've been thinking and praying about those whose souls have been scared and scarred. There is a term of art, ex-evangelical, that seems to encapsulate it. These are beautiful souls from worthy traditions, but who, when they voiced their questions, were rebuffed and socially exiled. And if you've ever been there, you know, it doesn't take much to feel yourself to be on the outs. Someone scared their souls. They may wonder if there is a place for them at all. And if we are to be accounted even the least bit faithful to what we believe, the answer to that question must always be yes. There is a place for you. The circle can always be widened. Just imagine if you had a real experience of Jesus on the mountaintop, But when you came down, you found something completely different from that. Fewer listening ears, a lot of dogma, no one to talk through your questions with. Not really a communion of souls trying to work out their lives on this side of heaven, but an excess of expectations and rules and purity codes. There's a lot of hand-wringing right now within the religious industrial complex about how many people are leaving church. They seem to prefer instead to be unaffiliated with anything in particular. It's hard to blame them when religion has been used against them. But don't think for 1 minute they don't love Jesus, or that their experiences on the mountain have been anything but real. I believe they're looking for communities where it feels safe to let their souls come out and play. They need safety so they can go back and inventory their lives with God's help. And they need to understand things from a fresh perspective. They need non-judgmental people that they can go back and reread the Bible with and helpfully deconstruct their faith, and by God's grace, reconstruct it in a new way so that it is their own and much more durable. They need people they can celebrate that with. And if in that search, they're close to the end of the line of searching, a church like this will very well be one of the last stops along the way. Please believe me, this isn't just conjecture. This is my story. The red doors of this church are symbolic of a lot of things, but chief among them should be this: sanctuary, rest, restoration, wholeness, safety from the tyranny of life and the tyranny of abusive religion. So to those who are curious, who may feel hurt and scared when it comes to church, let me say formally from this pulpit, loud and clear, this is a safe place. This is a soft place to land. It may challenge you, but only to build you. It will never hurt or destroy. You can find rest and you can find play for your soul here, and you can find food for your heart and your mind and your belly. This is a real community of faith. And Jesus is still at the center of things, transfigured. As we work out our lives and as we seek to become transfigured as well, it's okay. It's safe here. So come and see. Amen.